YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another NFL free agency signings grade video. This is our third one. We'll have a playlist for you guys with all these in there. There's definitely going to be more. I mean, the official league year doesn't even start till tomorrow, so we're just getting going here. There'll be more trades. There was some splash trades today. There was one yesterday. We're going to put them all together in one video here very, very soon here on the trades that already happened and grade those. So a lot going on here at the Goat House. Today started a little slow. We really turned it up a notch recently, so we're here with the video here. Going to be at least one more today, probably one more. But join us here on the channel, like, subscribe to notifications on. We got you covered with everything NFL. Follow our Twitter, breaking news on there, instant analysis on all these signings we're going to talk about on there. Been predicting some things, the Gilmore trade on there, like right before. It was pretty wild. So make sure you follow our Twitter. Very important. There's a link pinned in the comments for that. Our Discord, our sponsors, GLD Shop, rocking some of their stuff right now. Liquid IV, Walk the Mock. Links, again, pinned in the comments. I have like a tracker with all the numbers, grades for free agency as well down below, pinned in the comments there. But the first one we'll talk about is Eric Kendricks. This happened last night. Signed with the LA Chargers. And the details, I think, came out this morning. 2 years, $13.25 million. It's a roughly $6.662 million per year. So initially, I saw Chargers yesterday. Eric Kendricks with the Chargers. I'm like, is a really good linebacker. I think still he took a step down this past year, but I thought it was due to scheme, and we see that with linebackers all the time. Like as soon as they change their scheme, it's a lot different. He was dominant, one of the best linebackers in football as a 4-3 inside guy. Vikings changed to a 3-4, not as good. So I was really hoping he would go to a 4-3 team. Not really the case here. Staley likes to play with two inside linebackers. I mean, Kendricks can fill one of those holes. But he would fit your traditional 4-3 team. I was specifically looking for a cover 2 team. So it's not that. So I was a little bummed about that, but he is going to be with just a better defense. The Vikings defense was a disaster, last year, so that's going to help him in general. A good defensive coach in Brandon Staley, again, good weapons around him, and then the price, the value comes out, the contract comes out this morning, and it's like, all right, this might be how it's done, because you see all these other teams gambling on linebackers that they're kind of tweaking their position or there's changing schemes, and they're signing them to these huge deals, and it's like, man, that is risky. The player's talented, but that's risky. This one, not so much, with the risk part. It's a talented linebacker that can get back on track here. And it's at a very low cost, way lower than I expected. So I'm going to give that an A-. I still wonder a little bit about the fit, so wasn't going to get anything better than an A-. In terms of value, this looks like an A+. If we're just strictly looking at, Kendricks getting $6.662 million per year, it looks like an A+. You factor in, I wonder about the fit a little bit, but it's only 2 years. It's not super pricey. So overall, I do like the deal for the LA Chargers. Another A- for another ex-Viking, and that's Dalvin Tomlinson, who last night signed with the Cleveland Browns. 4 years, $57 million. That's $14.25 million per year. So yeah, that's pretty pricey. That's pretty pricey there, obviously, and I see a lot of people saying overpay, or is that an overpay? And I see a lot of that from people, and I'm going to say no on that. It is a lot. It's a lot of money, and maybe why I'm not going to, it's a little bit more than I thought he would get, maybe a tiny bit more. I thought I was higher on him than everyone else. I think other people were probably expecting him around where David Onyemata got, which was, just over $11 million. So it's a bit more than that. But I wasn't surprised I thought he was a better player, so I wasn't surprised he got more of that. Maybe a lot of other people are. But yeah, it is a big amount of money, so we won't, we're not going to be jumping out of our seats for this with the grade here, but I still really like it. I'm going to give it an A- because I think it's a fair deal, and it's exactly what the Browns have been missing. I've been saying it for years. They've been missing interior players, whether it's linebacker or D tackle, mainly D tackle, mainly interior on that D line. They have not been able to stop the run. They don't get any interior pressure, and you got a guy here, Dalvin Tomlinson, who used to play nose tackle, is moving to more D tackle, but can line up at the nose still as well. Really good stopping the run, huge for the Browns. He's been getting better and better getting after the quarterback, so I thought he was one of the better players in the Vikings defense last year. I think it's a tough loss for them. It is pricey, but this is exactly what the Browns needed. It sounded like they were in on Draymond Jones. That's a totally different type of interior defensive lineman. I don't know what they were going to do with Draymond Jones. I don't know if he fit, that well, like they were thinking maybe. So it might be a win, win-win there in that situation. So A- for the Browns, getting Dalvin, Tomlinson. Talking about Jason Kelce and James Bradberry signed with the Eagles a little bit ago. We graded that in this video. We'll get to it in a little bit. Don't mind the order here. This is a weird one. This is a weird one to grade because it's a 1-year, $14.25 million deal for Jason Kelce from the Eagles. And it's great that their captain, their big-time center, one of the best in football, is back. And he's really good center still. No matter how old he is, he's a really good center still. So that's the great thing. That's the good thing. The other side of it, I talked a little bit on Twitter. It's this weird saying because Jason Kelce's like really good. Of course, the Eagles would like to have him back, but look at kind of the financial side, the business side, the alternative. If Jason Kelce retired, they drafted Cam Jurgens in the second round last year. People were surprised by that, but it's like, all right, Kelce's got to be retiring after this year. So he's going to take over. So they had Cam Jurgens, second round pick, stepping up, and then they saved this $14.25 million, which they could use. They're losing some defensive players, but they got James Bradberry back at least. So was the alternative route actually better for business? Maybe. It is very, very, very difficult to sit here and say they are better off with Jason Kelce, so I'm not going to say that. I am not going to say that. But the business side of things, it does almost, you could argue. You kind of can argue like, maybe, are they better off with Kelce? No, but at the same time, would they rather have that 14.25, him on his way to the Hall of Fame retirement, roll with Cam Jurgens so he's not on the bench, unless he's going to play guard? I think he's more of a center. Makes more sense to me. I end up giving this one a B-. I got to look at again, we're going to keep it in the B range because, Kelce's back. He's your captain. He's still a really good center. But again, with the Eagles kind of needing that money, and then they could have played Cam Jurgens, it's not like they don't have a replacement. If you're thinking it's a good thing Kelce's back because we would have, the Eagles would have been screwed, with I don't think anyone's thinking that. If you're thinking is that, then you're really hating that Cam Jurgens pick from a year ago, so putting it all together, if this wasn't future Hall of Famer who's still good, Jason Kelce, I'd probably give this a worse grade, but we'll give it a B-. So it's a weird one for the reasons I explained there. But overall, I think everyone's happy that he's back, captain of that team. They'll try to run that back and then one more, win that game too. So we'll get back to the Eagles here. But quick A- for the Raiders and Jakobi Meyers. This happened a little earlier today. It was really the only big move from earlier. 3 years, $33 million. So this one had to be an obvious pretty good grade here. So I did give it an A-, $11 million per year. There was original thought that he would get more. That doesn't mean his value is more. It doesn't mean they got a steal here. But I did think he was going to get more. I think this is right around his range. I would have probably said the same thing if he got $12 million. I probably would have said that's right around his range. So it's a pretty good deal. It's not like an A+ in terms of value, but I'd say it's probably an A in terms of value, and you get a pretty good player that should continue to get better. So it's close to giving it an A. I'm going to give it an A-. So something I do like Jakobi Meyers. I do like the Raiders adding him here, I suppose, but at the same time, McDaniels and the Raiders, they're, and after this, they traded Darren Waller, and it just really feels like they brought in Dorsett. I don't know the numbers on that one yet, and then it really feels like they're probably going to move on from Hunter Renfrow because he's a slot receiver. Jakobi Meyers is a slot receiver. Even at Devontae Adams, he's an outside receiver, but he does some damage in the slot at times as well. So it really and they bring in Dorsett, really feels like they're going to move on from Renfrow. But what I was getting to was McDaniels and the Raiders are just so easy to just be done with guys, and that's not sitting super well for me. Like it started with Derek Carr. Like 1 year they saw enough, they're done. They did save quite a bit of money. Why I like the Garoppolo deal was because, all right, Carr's here and Garoppolo. This is the best way for me to explain this. Carr's here, Garoppolo's here. Not here. It's right about here to me in terms of talent. And that money was like this, though. Carr with the value, like the money they got and the savings. Carr's up here, Garoppolo's here. So that kind of makes the Garoppolo. And then you talk about system fit. You got Garoppolo here and Carr's down here. So you put all that together, it looks, good savings, better fit. Maybe he's not as good as Carr. He's not that much far off, compared to this money. So that's why I like the Garoppolo deal. So we're starting with that. Okay, they bring in Meyers. They're probably gonna have to move on from Renfrow. Sure, you can clear a little bit of space, if you move on from Renfrow. Not more than this though. And you moved on from Waller. So my point is, they're just so easy, so too quick to give up on guys and just go with other guys that that's the thing too. I mean, you go back to, because I was about to say guys that played for McDaniels, that know McDaniels' system, but at the same time, it was never McDaniels' call to get rid of guys in the past. He was forced to stick it out with those guys, and eventually they looked pretty good, and then Garoppolo went elsewhere eventually, but he looked pretty good. But Meyers was there for a bit. He's familiar with Dorsett, so maybe he's got to ride it out with some of these guys. So that, I don't love that they're like, could they have focused here? And again, I gave this an A-. It's in the A range. I like Jakobi Meyers. I think the value is pretty decent. I think he'll play well for them, so I don't want anybody thinking everything I just said really doesn't have to do with Jakobi Meyers signing. But I'm just something that's not sitting well with me. Is something I'm starting to realize is giving up on players too easy, just going with X players. It's a little interesting, And then could you have, alternative was just to run it back with Hunter Renfrow, because he's a pretty good slot receiver, and then use this money on kind of what they're missing on. They end up going the cheaper route at safety with Epps instead of Poyer. They need corners so badly. They need D tackle so badly. They're not doing that. They went the cheaper route with linebacker. They just signed Robert Spillane. Right before recording this video, I actually graded that. I snuck that one in here. So it's, would you have? It's a debate. It's a debate. I suppose. Would you rather start spending money in more important spots because you have a slot receiver already? But I didn't factor that too much into this. Otherwise, it would have been A. So I did a little bit, A- on this one. So it is interesting what the Raiders are doing. But overall, looking at just this, Jakobi Meyers, pretty good player. Upside, $11 million per year, looks pretty good. And then Alan Lazard also got $11 million per year. This is going to the Jets. 4 years, $44 million. Was surprised about that number. Some things are happening. Jaron Reed did the Seahawks. But was surprised by the length, 4 years, and by that number, $11 million. I thought Jakobi Meyers would get a bit more than Alan Lazard because he has some upside. He's still very young. Kind of fits today's style NFL. Lazard he's been all right. His main thing's been blocking, but he's been pretty good here and there. I thought he had a little off a year, but he's been with Aaron Rodgers his whole career at the same time. So, is he going to get any better? And Aaron Rodgers going to be his quarterback still as. I don't want to say Rodgers declining because I can see him having an MVP season again. Not that that's my prediction, but he's not going to get any better either. So I was a little surprised with the 4 year, $44 million, $11 million per year. There was some talk of teams really liking him, so maybe we thought maybe he would get a little bit, but I thought they would keep it under $10 million. Was this necessary for the Jets? I mean, if Rodgers is insisting, you're going to do everything what your quarterback, going to be quarterback, says. I thought they had decent receivers. They're probably going to move on from Corey Davis. I think Corey Davis actually has more upside, more talented. He just hasn't had the best quarterbacks, while Lazard has had Rodgers. What would Corey Davis be like with Rodgers? And they had Garrett Wilson. They have Elijah Moore. So, but they need offensive linemen for Rodgers. They probably need a couple more pieces on defense. So, could you use this money elsewhere? So I think you still get a pretty good player. He fits with Rodgers. I guess you're gonna move on from Corey Davis, so you get a replacement, I suppose. Pretty good blocker. But I gave this one a C+. There was more negatives involved in that than positives. But overall, yeah, I couldn't give this a D or lower than C+ because you do get. I got some sort of shadow going on behind me. That looks like it's part of the graphic. It is not part of the graphic. There we go. Block it a little bit. Yeah, so I don't know. I was a little surprised by that one. C+ for Lazard in the Jets. I talked a little about this on Twitter as well. Hope the Jets kind of find their own identity, kind of get creative the rest of this offseason. You don't want to just become the old Packers, because the old Packers couldn't get over the hump. Very good team, couldn't get over the hump. Rodgers was a little younger. Davante Adams was Davante Adams. I do love Garrett Wilson, but talking with Davante Adams, Aaron Jones in his prime. They do have Breece Hall, but Aaron Jones in his prime. Some of those offensive lines were elite. The best in football. Rodgers is all day to throw, being able to escape and sit out on the right side. It's just not the same with the Jets right now. And they have a pretty good defense. Packers had some good defenses then too. So you don't want to be that same team, and you're playing in a tough AFC East. You want to create your own Jets, your own team. So I'd say Jets, be careful here. They're going to be better. They're going to be fun to watch, but let's not forget what the goal is here. Next, we said we were going to talk about Bradberry in the Eagles. We talked about Jason Kelce a little bit ago. This one happened just a little bit ago. 3 years, $38 million for James Bradberry. That's $12.66 million per year. And I think that's a pretty good deal. And that is this shadow's really to show that's not part of the graphic. It's like something with the window up there, but I don't have blinds. I got blankets over it, so I don't know how it's getting through. Anyways, James Bradberry. I thought he was going to get more. I was a little worried he was going to get. And the max value I did see was $44 million. A lot of these contracts we talk about are max value because that's the first thing that comes out. This is actually base value. So max value $44 million, and that's a bit more. It's with incentives. But I thought maybe he would get a little bit more in this. And it's also good for the Eagles, too, because it sounds like they might be done with Slay, even though he had a monster season. But I kind of understand it in a way. Maybe they're doing it a little too early. But I understand they don't want to extend a guy like 32 years old. So they're going to need a corner one for the future. And Bradbury showed he can, maybe be that guy because he played very well. Super Bowl, he's a little off, but we're not going to base everything off the hardest game to play in on the season. This could be their cornerback one for the future because maybe Slay's not going to be around forever. I think he can play in every scheme either, coverage, any type of coverage, I believe, because we saw him and they played a bit of cover 2, cover 1, cover 6 this year, and they switched coordinators, so usually you get a little scary with the defensive players, but I think he can fit pretty much anything. So this is pretty good for the Eagles, at an A. If he does hit those incentives, I guess that makes him worth it then, but it does seem pretty pricey when you get to that max, but I gave it an A. A+ here, the Broncos get Samaje Perine. Chargers releasing Matt Filer, guard. But Broncos got Samaje Perine. I love this, A+. I like what a lot of these teams are doing with the running backs. Because they're pretty cheap deals. It's cheaper than the alternatives, like overpaying a running back, and you're getting pretty good running backs here. The Broncos needed somebody with some experience because Javonte Williams might miss a little bit of time. And you got one. Perine looked really good last year. I mean, I keep saying it like this so no one gets the wrong idea, but Mixon and Perine, who is more talented? It's Joe Mixon, but who actually, when they played, I know one played more than the other, when they played, who actually looked better to me last year? I thought it was Perine. I really did. And he's upside catching the ball in the backfield, downfield, tough runner. So the Broncos, I'm very, very confident that they are in on Kareem Hunt. And I can definitely see Kareem Hunt asking for too much and definitely more than this. So you go $3.75 million per year for Samaje Perine? Yes, please. Thank you. A+ for the Broncos on that. I like that one a lot there. Sneaky underrated running back that is pretty talented. What do we got next? We got a list of signs. There's another page after this as well. So we got a lot to go over on these pages. But more running backs here. More running backs and good grades as well. I mean, the Dolphins got both their backs back. Some talk about them being in on Dalvin Cook. I mean, really good running back, going back home to Miami. That would have been fun. But do they need to spend that much trade and spend that much on a running back when, honestly, Mike McDaniel abandons the run way too easy anyways? So I don't know if that would have made a lot of sense. They get their running back duo back. Jeff Wilson gets $8.2 million over 2 years. I'm going to give that an A-. Pretty solid. Could catch the ball a little bit better, some drops later last year. But a solid back that fits the system. Didn't even have a full year with them yet. Value-wise, that's pretty good. I'm shocked that he got that much more than Raheem Mostert, though, which I gave an A+. I mean, Mostert does have some durability issues, but that is a fast and tough runner. 2-year, $5.6 million value-wise just seems like an absolute steal. So I gave that an A+. And the underrated Boston Scott, who's an impact for the Philadelphia Eagles, gets 1 year, just $2 million. I think it's an A+ for them. So some really smart running back deals. And the Eagles also signed Rashad Penny, which by the time of recording this, I'd never got the contract details on that yet. And that actually happened before Boston Scott. So a little weird. But that's an interesting one too. But really smart running back deals here. And I am blocking this shadow. It just ruined the entire video. But I'm blocking a grade down there. So I guess we'll remove myself. No, we'll do one of these. We're going to go ahead and do... No, we're blocking that then. We're just going to do one of these. Okay, there we go. I'm tiny now. We'll have that shadow... Oh, it's probably going to be dark out, so the shadow will be gone for the next video anyways. Where are we at? Falcons, Taylor Heinicke. Okay, the Heinicke one. 2 years, $14 million. All right, value-wise, like Heinicke, starting experience, it's probably a high-end backup, $7 million per year. Originally reported 2 year, $20 million. That's max value, so $14 million. $7 million per year. That looks not only good, it looks pretty damn good, honestly. But why did I grade it a C+? I just hate what the Falcons are setting up here. I just really don't like it. I mean, my thinking of what the Falcons are setting up here gets an F. The value on Heinicke probably gets an A. We're going to find somewhere in the middle there because they have Ritter, which there are some fans, and maybe the Falcons as well attached to Ritter. He's a third-round pick. Sure, he could be decent. He can get better. I didn't think he looked good. Some people saying he looked pretty good at the end of last year. I did not see it. That doesn't mean a whole lot. He got thrown in at the end of the year, whatever. He could be pretty good. But so it's basically Ritter and Heinicke. Like, why are they so afraid to get better at that position? You went and got a star-free safety, spent a lot of money on that. Yeah, okay, you got him. You have a star corner in A.J. Terrell. You went and got David Onyemata, stud defensive tackle. You're getting creative with a Caden Ellis type of guy there. I kind of like the idea of that. You have a star defensive tackle in Grady Jarrett. You do need some edge rushers. But and then looking at offense, you just paid Lindstrom, made him the highest paid guard in football because he's one of the better guards in football. You have Jake Matthews. The offensive line seemed to come together last year. You have a monster in Kyle Pitts who's just only going to continue to get better. You traded for Jonnu Smith because he fits, and it's just it's a good pairing, good duo. You have Drake London. You spent a high pick on him, for whoever your quarterback is because he's a beast as a contested catcher, and you're creating something special, unique there with those big body type guys. You're getting better everywhere. You're not afraid to get better everywhere. You have a lot of cap space. You're spending money. But then quarterback, the most important position of football, what are you doing? Go do it. Do you want to be decent or do you want to be good? Do you want to be great? It drives me nuts. So the more I'm talking about it, the more I want to give it a worse grade. But and the value's pretty good on like looking at Heinicke in the value alone, it's pretty good. So that was just so difficult for me to grade, but I just they're pissing me off. I'm not a Falcons fan, but I kind of feel like I am when I kind of get all upset about these things, and there's some fans, I noticed that on mock drafts, the few times I mocked them a quarterback, that for some reason you guys are really attached to Ritter. You can't be like that if you draft a guy first overall. You can't get like that. Some fans get like that. I just want to see good football. I want to be the best my team to be the best they possibly can be. And we're talking about being attached to a third round pick. Again, I think you can get better. I think you can be decent. You're not going to go win anything special. Even a little bit less than special. You're not going to win that there. So it looks like that's what their plan is. Ritter and Heinicke. Maybe they prove me wrong and they draft a quarterback. And I'd feel a little bit better, I guess, depending on the quarterback and where. Lions, Emmanuel Mosley, 1 year, $6 million. I just went on a rant against the Falcons there. I love the Jesse Bates, David Onyemata. Those were in the other videos. But the Lions, Emmanuel Mosley, 1 year, $6 million. A pretty talented corner overall. He's got experience playing outside and in the slot. I'd imagine the Lions playing him in a slot. And because they got Cam Sutton who can do both as well, but I like him better outside. And you paid him $11 million. You didn't make him the highest paid slot corner. You paid him to play outside. So you got Mosley to play inside, and it does help that he has the versatility to play outside. But believe it or not, $6 million is high-end slot corner money. It's actually a lot for that position, and it's not like it's too much or anything like that, But you get a guy who's talented, but he has not finished the season, and not even really close to finishing the season since 2019. So high-end money on a slot corner that can play outside, but you already got an outside guy that can play inside. So now we're getting a little, just go get the best guys. You have money. I thought the Lions would be doing a little bit more. And I do like the Cam Sutton. I graded that pretty highly. I do like that move. But this one, again, talented guy, but there's a lot more factors as I explained in that, where I don't really love it, but it's not the worst grade, C+ in the world. Jamon. I was like mixing John Cominsky. John Cominsky, 2-year, $8.5 million. Yeah, he didn't work out with the Falcons. Went to the Lions. He had some beast moments, beastly games last year. Was pretty productive, and he's a guy that you can put off the edge, maybe slide inside sometimes. And they have a few, him and Pashaw, maybe kind of similar. But yeah, pretty promising. I guess, does he kind of go back to normal? I guess, then where this is a risk, I suppose, but it's not too expensive. 2-year, $8.5 million. I give it a B+. Cowboys bring back Donovan Wilson, 3-year, $24 million. Was more than I expected. Pretty good player. I think a little inconsistent. Sometimes he makes a flashy play. Sometimes it's, up and down a little bit, but a pretty good player overall. I guess he fits Dan Quinn, but a little more than I expected. $8 million per year, and we're talking about safeties getting paid around that range. They're definitely better than him, in my opinion. So a little more than I expected. Maybe they could have spent. I guess a piece to that Dan Quinn defense, but could they have spent their money elsewhere? And they're making other moves, like the Gilmore trade. They signed Leighton Vander Esch back as well. A little more unexpected. Vikings with Garrett Bradberry, 3-year, $15.75 million. I gave it a C+. Honestly, in terms of money, it's not like an overpay or anything like that. I honestly thought maybe he would get a little bit more from a different team, because different teams seem to work out with centers a little better, and I could see him having upside somewhere else. But for the Vikings, he can run block, but he hasn't been the best pass protector and allowing interior pressure a bit. So you're going 3 years with him, and it's not the priciest thing, but there's a little bit of money in that, involved in that. And they go and get Josh Oliver because they want a run blocking tight end. They want to be able to run the ball a little bit more. That's on the outside, obviously. The tackles and the outside blocking seems to be fine to me. The interior was the issue, but you're going to run it back with Bradbury. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but 3 years, $15.75 million. I wasn't really in love with it. It's not the worst thing in the world. Then Jake Brendel, is going to end up being a little bit cheaper and just seemed to play pretty well for the 49ers last year. They have a little bit of because that was the first year he was playing. It was a little bit of a mystery, like how good is he going to be? I guess a little bit still, like how good is he going to be going forward? We have an idea it'll be all right for the 49ers. A little surprised to do that they did this, because they could have went cheaper. They could have went much cheaper on a guy that probably could have played, that's maybe a worse, not as big of a name, even though that Brendel's not a big name. And the guy probably would have been just as good, because it's a 49ers system scheme. But it's pretty good overall value. Gave it a B. Steelers bringing Nate Herbig, 2-year, $8 million. It's a quality backup with experience. So that's the good thing here. $4 million per year. That's kind of a high end for a backup, sort of. My thing with the Steelers is, they're kind of messing around with these types of guys for a lot. And I think they're actually all right at guard. But then why did they need this? But they're always getting guys that maybe, if they have to play, maybe they'll have to play. Experienced guys. Why not just go out and get better? Thought they'd have a little bit more splash moves so far. But it's an okay one. I gave it a B. It's a pretty good experience, high-end backup type guy. And then next, we got some more. I can make myself a little bit bigger. Colts got a kicker. Was that last night or this morning? One of the two. So many signings, I can't remember. 4-year, $22.5 million. I can argue both sides of this. This is one of the better kickers in football. The Colts been needing a kicker pretty badly. Blankenship looked like he was going to be pretty promising right away. Then wasn't. He wasn't good. They need a kicker pretty badly. They got one of the better ones in football. Okay, that's great. The negative side is, you can see what Blankenship, you see what all these other kickers, they kind of can go south out of nowhere. It doesn't matter how old they are, how good they were, out of nowhere. So you did sign him to a 4-year deal. You made him the second highest paid kicker in football, which that part that's okay, because Matt Gay is really good. And the Colts seem to be in some sort of rebuild. They're probably going to have a rookie quarterback. They traded Gilmore. They're not making signings per usual. They're letting guys walk. So for a lengthy deal on a kicker when you're in rebuild, and by the time you're ready, by the time you need your kicker to help you win games, where's he going to be at, because kickers fall off. The more I'm talking about this, the more I feel like the B was generous. But at the same time, the value's there. You got one of the better kickers in football, and they desperately needed a kicker. So I guess that's where I came up with the B. EJ Speed showed some promise, last year, and they lost Okereke as well. 2-year, $9 million, a pretty low value. I know maybe some fans wishing they would have went out and just go out and go get better in these different spots. So we'll give it a B+. Andrew Wingard, 3-year, $9.6 million. Decent player, got experience with them. Pretty cheap deal. Give it a B+ there. Could they have went out and tried to get better at that spot? Not much action from the Jaguars, which was expected from me because how big they went last year. Giants get Raheem Nunez Roaches, 3-year, $12 million from the Bucks. Yeah, so maybe a little surprised, maybe to fans too. I know people were starting to hype up the Giants, like watch out for them. We're one of the big D tackles because look at Leonard Williams' contract, and they might have to move on from him, and they feel like they want to get a piece that fits Martindale's scheme to put next to Dexter Lawrence, and it was kind of getting hyped up going into free agency. And I suppose they missed out on some of those guys, and maybe it's a good thing that they didn't overspend on some of those guys. But so you went from like hearing that they might go up here for like those D tackles, but they end up kind of going. It's a decent backup player here. Is he going to end up starting perhaps? Not super expensive. Maybe just like a little underwhelming, but I still give it a B-. Commanders get Cody Barton, 1 year, $3.5 million. I gave this a C-. Played pretty bad for the Seahawks last year. I mean, he's young. He has some flashy plays here and there, but just overall hasn't been good. My main issue is the Commanders kind of being afraid to get better. And I was going to say at the linebacker position, and I do like the Andrew Wiley signing, and there's some other signings that are sneaky, I suppose, but it's kind of like staying the same and getting a little bit better. They're not going out there and boom, we're going to get better at this spot. So I could actually argue all over the place, even though they've made some signings here and there. But linebacker's been an issue. And are they going to start Barton? Like, this is a downgrade from Holcomb if that's the case, and you're just like they're so afraid to get better at the linebacker position. And other linebackers that are very good, I think, are getting underpaid severely in free agency, and they could have spent a little bit more when they have cap space to get one of those guys and actually get better. Just why not, so maybe the C- might be generous. So sometimes I start talking about stuff and I start to get a little heated. I kind of put myself like in there, like I'm a fan of some of these teams when I talk about this, so I get a little frustrated. Cardinals with Kaiser White, 2-year, $11 million. Was surprised about this. Usually I see the connections between former coaches and players. Jonathan Gannon there, but White, the Eagles signed him last year. I didn't like the signing for the Eagles last year. Eagles fans were hyped about it. They were arguing with me, but he didn't end up looking that good at all for them, and they're fine with moving on from him. That's why I was surprised Gannon got him back, because I didn't know. Maybe he sees some upside there because he didn't play super well for him. But 2-year, $11 million. It's the same exact deal as David Long got, who was a much, much better linebacker. Again, some of these good linebackers are getting underpaid around this range, and you're getting a guy that's not a bad linebacker, but he's far less talented than those guys, when you could have spent the same amount a little more. I mean, those linebackers better are getting less money. I know you're trying to find the right fit, but I don't know. But he is decent. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like he's a bad linebacker. But I was a little surprised about that one. Kelvin Beachum, who hasn't been the best right tackle for the Cardinals, but you get him back, an experienced guy, you get him back 2-year, $5.1 million. I think that's pretty damn good value and experience there. And some of the right tackles are off the board, so you get him back. I think in terms of value, that's an A. He did say that Murray needs to grow up a little bit. I don't have a problem with him saying that. It's just kind of funny that they brought him back, though. Panthers got Andy Dalton, was just a little bit ago, 2-year, $10 million. And you could say, why do this? If you're going to just draft your starting quarterback first overall, you trade all the way that up to go get him. Understand that thinking, but 2-year, $10 million for an experienced, smart quarterback is a pretty good steal in terms of value. Again, he is going to be a backup, and you're spending money on a backup here that kind of affects the rest of your free agency, so I don't want to give it an A+, but good mentor for C.J. Stroud or whoever it's going to be. And I think that's pretty damn good value there for the Panthers. I've given the Panthers a few A's. I didn't really like the shy total one, but these other ones I've given them a few A's. Texans get Noah Brown. He was kind of a sneaky underrated receiver for the Cowboys last year. 1 year, $2.6 million. I think he's got some upside still. I like that value in A. This one confused me. Chargers Trey Pipkins, 3 year, $21.75 million. I gave it a D plus. Because I don't think, some of these guys I give a lower grade to, like in the C ranges, like at least something's there, like the value, or, he could be good with that. I don't know, something like that. But I'm not surprised they brought him back, but the value isn't there. I thought it was a little bit much. He hasn't been good for them. They keep saying upside with this guy, upside, but I keep waiting for it. You paid him like he's probably going to be the starter, but you don't want him to be the starter. But then if he's not the starter, you're overpaying him for sure. It just feels like they're kind of afraid to get better in that spot. He's got experience. He had to start because, he was starting at right tackle. Rashawn Slater, elite, or close to elite, either one. I don't care which one you say. Very good left tackle. Rashawn Slater got injured last year, so Jamari Sawyer, who I liked at tackle at Georgia, but they wanted to play a guard, had to play tackle. He looked really good. So now that Slater's coming back, yes, you have to put Slater at left tackle, but why can't you put Sawyer at right tackle? Why are you insisting on putting him at guard? You're going to pay Pipkins instead, or why not just get better at right tackle? Then you have a stud offensive line, with Sawyer at guard and Slater at left tackle and Lindsley at center. So it's kind of another one of those afraid to get better situations, but eventually he might be a backup, which is good because that means you got better, but then you're paying this guy too much to be a backup. So I gave it a D plus. At least he fits, so I couldn't give it an F. And we keep hearing about upside with this guy, but I don't know. Steelers with Larry Ogunjobi, 3 year, $28.75 million. Was that over $9 million per year? It's a tricky one too, because the idea of Larry Ogunjobi, worth it, around the $9 million range, especially the way he played for the Bengals a couple years ago. So kind of worth it. Maybe feels like a B plus around there. But then you're like, he had one really good year. It's a really good year. Can he get back to that? He's not in the Bengals. You think the Steelers would be able to they usually can get it out of these guys. Can he get back there? And then he got a raise from last year. Was he deserving of getting a raise? From last year, it was like $1.6 million, but so I gave it a B minus. I still think it's a good player. Another year being healthy. There was some concern about that last year. So maybe this year see some upside here, and they're banking off that. So I don't want to give it a bad grade, really. C minus. Raiders, Robert Spillane. This happened right before recording, and the Leighton Vander Esch really happened right before recording. We snuck that in there. More signings happening right now. We'll get to them. But Spillane, the Raiders need to get better on defense in general. Matt Crosby's freaking carrying out there. They needed corners, they needed D tackles, they needed linebackers, they got Epps at safety. I'm not in love with that one either, but all right, they're gonna take a swing at trying to make the linebacker spot better. They're gonna get Robert Spillane, who was wasn't good for the Steelers. They needed to replace these guys. 2 year, $9 million. There's other linebackers that are far better that just went for a little bit more expensive, right around the same range. Just this much difference in price and value, but in terms of talent, it's a lot. I keep using my hands when talking about the Raiders. But why are they afraid to spend a little bit on defense? The defense. Patrick Graham is a good defensive coordinator. I know it, a really good defensive coordinator. But that defense on paper is just terrible. Crosby is an absolute stud, probably one of my favorite players that is not on my team, in the NFL. Mareg, I'm good with him. Nate Hobbs in the slot, good with him. Maybe Chandler Jones could figure it out, this year, perhaps. Not worried about him, really. But the rest of the defense, man, you got to get better. And they're just sticking around the same. Are they? Because is Spillane going to replace Perine, who's far better than Spillane? So I don't know. The more I'm talking about, the more I'm thinking the C minus might be generous. Cowboys, Leighton Vander Esch, 2 year, $11 million. Decent player. We know he fits. Some flashes on that team. Good defense last year. Normally this would be better than a B minus, probably like a B plus. But again, there's other linebackers that are quite a bit better than him that are going for the same exact price range, maybe a little bit less for some guys. Because he's a pretty decent linebacker. So right around the same, though. Why couldn't they dish out a little bit more? Like, I'm surprised no one paid Jermaine Pratt and David Long Jr. more. Like a lot more. And it would have been worth it, you know. But, I mean, again, pretty decent player. Fits over there. Not super expensive. B minus. But the linebacker market is changing kind of my grades on where I would normally grade on some of these guys, as you can tell. But, yeah, I kind of went on a bit of a rant. First about, you know, what the reflection here, and then, you know, about the Falcons and some of these other teams and the linebackers, and maybe what are the Raiders doing and what they're doing on one side of the ball is good, maybe not the other side. I don't know. Just maybe too many rants, but it's fun time here. We have more of these videos definitely coming. There's some trades that happened. I want to put together a video on those as well. More trades will happen. More signings will happen. We'll have you covered on our Twitter first and then here on the channel after. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on, links in the comments for the Twitter, everything else. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.